the answer to this question is, I don't know. You all don't know.
Right.
No one knows. And probably we're not ever going to know until someday when we meet Jesus and we can ask. Welcome to The Well, where we get together and talk about life, death, and everything in between. Welcome to Season 2. We're on Season 2, Episode 1, so we're excited to have a lot of fun. My name is Pastor Carrie, and my favorite football penalty is a safety.
My name is Pastor Tim, and my favorite flooring is a nice laminate.
My name is Jay, and my favorite Disney show growing up was Phineas and Ferb.
Fantastic.
Where are we going today?
I know, it's awesome.
All right, and our last member to be introduced is Mel.
Hi, Mel.
Hey, Mel, it's nice to see you. It feels like it's been a long time, right? Yeah. It's been a long time for Mel since we've had our last podcast, as he lives in a well all by himself. So I think you've been a little bit lonely, buddy, right? Yeah, okay. Well, it's nice to have you. Oh, that's nice. A little hug
Hi,
there.
buddy.
Oh, very nice.
Do Mel's hibernate?
No, he does not. He does live at the bottom of a well, though, where we gather to talk about our topics. So he's lived there for a really long time, and every time people come by and talk about different things, he writes down their topics and keeps them in case anyone ever wants to have good conversation. Right, Mel? All right. So he's going to lend us some topics today, and we're going to see what we think about them. So what do you say, Mel? Should we get started with the first one? All right, here we go. He wears a name tag, too, just in case anybody forgot.
Oh, there we go.
Very good. Okay. Here we go, Mel. Down to the well. He probably has picked out some favorites with all that spare time on his hands. Okay, here we go. Thank you, Mel. All right. Sorry. I forgot what our order was.
I did too.
Well,
Do you want me just to
why
start?
don't
I'll
you-
read
yeah.
and
Go
then
for it.
you can
Perfect.
answer first, so we'll go
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I feel like we've talked about one similar to this before, but
Okay.
we'll see if we want to answer it. Do you allow people to be themselves, or do you feel the constant need to fix or change them?
I feel like we have talked about that one before.
I think we might have actually answered
So
this
too.
question.
All right,
Should we try another one?
Let's
and see?
send Mel
All right.
back down, shall we? Here we go.
We're starting off with a bang on Season
All
2.
right.
Yes.
Sometimes they get mixed up. Okay, here he is. Thank you, Mel.
Oh, this one's much longer. Well, Mel came in hot with this one.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So Matthew 7:16 through 17. By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. Are people of faith recognizable? How?
It's an interesting question. I was not prepared for where that question went at the end.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Are people of faith recognizable? Does anybody feel the need to go ahead and chime in on this one while I give it a think? Because I'm struggling a little bit with it.
Do you have a thought, Pastor Tim? Otherwise, I can try to kick us off.
Go for it.
Okay. So I too, the question threw me off and kind of went a different way. And I think the question maybe is making, the way I read the question, I'll say, is maybe making the assumption that faith could produce good fruit. And do you see that? And I'm going to go a different angle on that and say sometimes people of faith maybe are recognizable, but maybe not always for good reasons. I think sometimes maybe flawed or broken theology, and I'm careful how I say that because I know I'm perspective, but if a theology causes you to exclude others, where I'm at in my understanding of God and living life as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus, I would say that would be bad fruit. And you can still recognize that maybe their faith is leading them there. But I wouldn't say necessarily that's good, because it's not good for humanity if you're othering or you're excluding. And so I'm guessing that's probably not exactly where the question was going, but that's where my
it's-
mind went. I think it's more complicated than just saying, is someone of faith recognizable? I think what our faith is our faith in ourselves and only solely looking at this finish line called salvation, and that's our only goal here, or is our faith about following Christ? Is our faith being led by the good news of Christ and Christ's love? The finish line isn't just salvation; it's how it isn't a finish line. It's how we live now, kingdom here and now, here and then. I don't know if I have an answer, and more just ponderings on that because I'm thrown off by the question too, especially in relation to that text specifically.
Yeah. So I think my natural inclination is to reject the idea that there are good people and bad people and replace it with something like sometimes we do things that are better and sometimes we do things that are not as good.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned before that there's a book called How to Be Perfect by the writer of The Good Place.
Yeah.
And he talks about it's just a big treatise on moral philosophy, and I was just reading it last night. So this reminds me, like, this is actually more of a philosophical question than a faith question of how do we know we're doing the right things, or how do we trust that other people are doing the right things? Because sometimes it's really hard to know, what are we supposed to do, right? Are we supposed to take the shopping cart back into the store, or do we put it in the corral? Like, what's the best thing to do? Do we put it in the corral so someone has a job that can get it out of that corral? Or do we bring it back to the store because that's maybe more helpful for the employees, right? It's one of those like weird conundrum things. And so I wonder if what Jesus is talking about here, and the way I think about this teaching is we can't always know right away. We do our best, and then we can look back, right? Because trees bear fruit in time; they don't bear fruit right away. So I think this saying is reminding us to be patient and to be thoughtful, and realize that sometimes even with the best of intentions, things can go wrong. And so to be thoughtful and learn lessons from how things turn out. So I don't know that our people of faith recognizable like has anything to do with this particular scripture passage. And I don't like that. So I'm not going to answer that part of it. Okay.
I
think-
appreciate that perspective.
I think they're recognizable by their fish bumper stickers. And then I was thinking about Pastor Carey's, well, really, to be a good Christian, you should leave your cart out in the middle so someone else has an opportunity to be a good Samaritan to put it back.
Yeah, there's that other perspective.
And so you sit here and go, what's good for me is not always good for the other. And I guess to me, being a disciple, being a person of faith is living like Christ, living in a loving way. And loving is shown differently to different people. You know, how I show love to this person is going to be different than how I show love to this person. Sometimes reproving someone is a sign of love. You know, you did this wrong. I think back when I did something wrong here at work, and one of the staff members reproved me and told me what I did wrong, and I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. That helped me out. So I think why I don't like the question is it has me looking at my neighbor to see what their faith is like, and I'm judging them whether they have the right faith or not.
Yeah, that's a struggle.
One, I don't like to judge just people walking their path. I mean, I might go after religious leaders who deceive people, but I think, give people a break a little bit and relax. So I don't like that last part. It's very... we're not supposed to judge,
Right?
And so if you have a fish bumper sticker, but also give me the international salute that you're angry at me, well, you're having a bad day maybe, and I just have to put up with that. I really like what Pastor Carey said philosophically about bears fruit in its season. I think back to when Jesus goes by the fig tree and curses it because it doesn't have figs. Maybe it wasn't old enough yet. I don't know. And so, I mean, that's kind of harsh, but, I think that, I think Carrie hit it on the nail on the head.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I hope that Mel has something. All right. We're going to need something better from you, Mel, okay? All right. Here we go.
Really starting to year off week.
All right. Oh, okay. He's got something. Let's bring it on up here. All right. I can.
Oh, it's one of these.
Okay. This is a question. All right. From the Peanut Gallery. If God loves and cares for everyone, why do people have mental illness, struggle with anxiety, have bad households, suffer from depression, etc.?
Good question.
And there's a nice picture drawn at the bottom. I do like that picture. I think it's
Yes.
maybe a tree or feathers.
Or feathers, yeah.
I went to palm leaves. You know, there's brokenness in the world, and there's still death in the world. And I think that brokenness that we carry on is almost something that we genetically carry on from one generation to the next. And, struggling with anxiety, I don't know what a bad household is. I guess something that's abusive, suffering from depression, even something like cancer is basically comes from who we are in our brokenness. And that's the reason why Jesus came, was to bring healing to that brokenness and help us to see how we're to be here for one another as we are, in our hurt and suffering, and help lift up one another through our difficult times. I think of my own depression and how so many people, not just my counselor in that, but so many people have helped and lifted me up during dark times where they showed so much grace and mercy. And that's, to me, in a way, that brokenness and hurt is still there, but it also gives us an opportunity to be there with one another. I don't know how I would live my life if everything was great and wonderful and perfect. Um, and I hope maybe someday I'll experience that. But as we live now, we're there for one another in the hurt and the pain. And until that brokenness is gone, we are called to travel together in all of that and to be here for one another, to listen, to act, and to support. So maybe that brokenness is here to help us relate to one another in Christ.
Yeah. I was seeing same idea, just different angle. A recent conversation that I just had with a close friend popped into my mind, and we were talking about from the perspective of being parents, and we have kind of a parallel that that we are raising kids whose life experience, based on race, gender, whatever it is different than our own. And just sharing together from our perspective that there's a lot of things we don't know, yet the instinct is to want to protect them and have none of this stuff happen to them. And in the middle of our conversation, we kind of, I guess, I'm going to say the Holy Spirit was involved, but we kind of helped each other realize that we actually can't make that stuff not happen. And it literally came with tears in the conversation of like, it's hard. And, frankly, I'm going to use the word, kind of sucks to realize that. And it was just like a deep breath moment of like, we actually can't make some of this stuff not happen. We can work for justice. We can work for this. We can do that. But at the end of the day, we can't ensure that this stuff isn't going to happen to our kids. And so then the conversation shifted to what can we ensure? It was, well, we can strive day in and day out, with me with staff and them with their partner of this is how we can ensure that our kid knows that they are loved and cared for, and that we walk alongside them, that we're going to that if they are questioning, we're not going to just try to, throw answers at them because we don't understand, but that we can question with them and walk alongside them. And that story came up right away when I saw this is sometimes I know for myself personally, I've spent a lot of time just asking God why it's happening. And usually the shift for me happens when I realize that God's always been there. Not that God was there in the person or thing that hurt me, but God was with me while I was receiving that, and God was reminding me consistently that I was loved. And I don't mean that in like a butterfly fluffy way, but more just in a, I can't explain why bad things happen. It's the most common question I get in youth ministry. Why is mom sick? Why is grandpa sick? Answer thing here. I can't explain why bad things happen. And I think the moment we try, we just get ourselves in trouble and cause harm. But I do think we have enough evidence and perspective to realize that God does walk alongside us, and God blesses us with each other to offer care, love, support. And like that story with the kids, like maybe sometimes we just wonder and ponder alongside, and that's empathy, that's love. And I think that's where I see God in that. But,
yeah, I feel like it's sometimes very difficult for humans to have two things be true at the same time. But this is an example of two things being true at the same time. God loves and cares for us, and we suffer.
Yeah.
And the answer to this question is, I don't know. You all don't know.
Right. No
one knows. And probably we're not ever going to know until someday when we meet Jesus and we can ask. Yep. And I think, Jay, you're right. Every time we try and put some kind of system to suffering, it ends up really reflecting more of who humans are than anything to do with God, because we have the brains and the intellects and the logic and the systems of humans, and there's nothing we can do to change that. There's a metaphor that we're all just in one big emergency room, waiting room together, right? Who knows why we're here? Who knows how we got here? And we're called in one by one, but in the meantime, we're all just waiting. And the thing we do for each other is give each other juice and graham crackers. We can't fix the medical things that are wrong with us. We have to wait till we get into the room. But in the meantime, we are all in this room together, and we do have some access to some juice and some graham crackers. So we make the best out of that we can, even though we don't know why or even maybe what is wrong all the time.
I like that analogy because, like, when I go to my doctor and I find something's wrong, I don't always ask why. I might know why, but let's deal with what's wrong.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Deep ones this morning, Mel. All
Yeah,
right.
Mel's hitting us
Good.
pretty hard.
Let's give it one more try, Mel. All right, here we go. Okay. I think this one for Pastor Tim to read. Thanks, Mel.
Thanks, Mel.
We'll see
Thanks,
you.
Mel. Bye.
Bye-bye. Hopefully, we don't need another one.
What did Jesus mean when he said, "Judge not, and you will not be judged"? Luke 6:37.
I actually think a combo of the past two questions, the answer to the past two questions is kind of my answer.
Right.
I am not the one, and actually there's freedom in knowing I am not the one to decide if someone's good or bad. I have this quote saved on my phone that says, just love them, I'll sort it all out later. And then the person that said it was God.
Yeah.
And I think, and I don't mean that in like an apathetic way either, but in an empathetic way of we're called to love. Like these three remain, and the greatest of these is love. And so if Jesus is saying that and then saying judge not, I think at the end of the day, if I guess I'm going to go back and quote Pastor Carey. At the end of the day, maybe we're supposed to offer juice and graham crackers. I really do. don't know if I have more. I think I think we've all known what it's felt like to be judged, and the shame and guilt and pain that comes with that. I wouldn't wish that on anybody and wouldn't want to be the one to cause that. So I think, and Jesus tells us not to. So I'm not saying I don't do it. I'm not perfect. But I do think, yeah, I don't know if there's more to add.
Yeah, that's good. It makes me, this question or this quote, I guess, makes me think of, maybe people you've known in the past who are very, very critical, right, of people. And, maybe you're watching people go past and they're criticizing different things about them. And you realize that this person, like every time they say that, is actually really like playing out the pain that's already existing inside of them, right? As they are judging others, even though probably it does feel like something good to say, I'm not bad, they're bad, right? But we know that deep inside, they're actually really judging themselves, right? The more we criticize and condemn, we know that deep down inside, that condemnation is actually turning toward us. We are condemning ourselves. We are judging ourselves. So I think maybe Jesus was saying, if you get out of this mental, uh, uh, cycle of just judgment and condemnation, you won't feel condemned either, because you won't be condemning yourself as you're constantly condemning and judging others. So it's almost like a little psychological experiment, right? Of like, maybe instead write your gratitude list at the end of the day or whatever, to help you get out of this sort of condemnation, destruction cycle of destruction, I think.
It made me think of one of the other things that Jesus said is love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
See, this one, it's home for me in two ways. One, I, whether it's my personality or family I come from, I can be very judging, and it's a struggle for me not to be. I kind of grew up with that's what you do, and I know how it is a defense mechanism, and it's when you attack the other, you're making yourself look better, or somehow, in some disturbed way, make yourself feel better, which is totally wrong. But I also look at it from the viewpoint of the church, and when I look at the church today, Jesus' conflict was with the judges, the Pharisees, the chief priests, the Sadducees, those who had the gall to judge their neighbors. And when I look out at a lot of the church, it's judging their neighbors. They're worried so much about the speck that the church is walking around with a huge log in its eye. And that really, this is being judging, but it really breaks my heart. And that's how the church is seen. If you ask people who aren't associated with church to say why you're not associated with church beyond the non-belief, it's normally the behavior of the disciples who are supposed to show love who don't. And so I focus so much on love, I have to say, because it's hard for me. It's really easy for me to point the finger and say, I'm better than that. And so this is actually a passage that means a lot personally, because it's a struggle I have. And just to see my neighbor as another person who's trying to get through this struggle of life, and trying to live and love as they can, who am I to say the way you love is wrong or the way you live is wrong? As long as you're doing it in a loving manner and you're not being abusive. And maybe the church needs to look at itself and say, are we doing this in a loving manner? Or are we being abusive? And I'm afraid often the answer is we're not doing it in a loving way, and we are being abusive. And yes, that's judging, but it's judging the self, who we are. So hopefully I'll do better at that.
Yeah, Those are big questions.
Yeah, they really
to
are.
kick us off.
Yeah, they really are. Okay. Our next segment is where we cook a recipe out of one of our Lutheran cookbooks. We have kind of a small, not terribly small collection, about 8 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I made a recipe from the Fair Flair First Lutheran of Cedar Rapids Spring 1991 cookbook. And this is called Christmas Cornflake Wreaths. I know that it is not Christmas, but I had some cornflakes. So, and I remember these from being a kid. I don't know if any of you guys have ever had these, but I always thought they looked so cool because they really do look like wreaths, even though they're cornflakes. So,
That's awesome.
help yourselves there. I'm going to take one. They should be not too sticky, but they might be a little sticky. Super loud. Okay. And then, yeah, be careful of the candies, which are kind of hard and chewy.
Can we sneak producer Doug over here for this one? There we go.
Nice sneaking.
Super sneaky.
I know who made these. Who did the recipe?
Todd Crop. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Got it.
Um,
Cool.
I just instantly go back to just being a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not upset about that feeling.
They definitely look like the food coloring crazes of the past. Not like something you would want to eat, green cornflakes, but
Right. But yet I find myself wanting to eat it.
Green cornflakes aren't naturally green.
I
yes.
You guys get your cornflakes.
I'm brought back to my childhood where at some event I remember these being made, and by the time we got done, all little kids, the walls were like green. I think it might have been like at school or something because we didn't.
Yeah,
clean
it
our
says
hands
at the
up.
bottom of this recipe, kids love to make these. And in making these, I thought to myself, I would never, ever do this because it was messy and I can't imagine what
Messy
would
to
happen with
eat.
the little hands. Messy to eat, yeah. All right, so yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, they're fun. I'll give them a 3.
That's funny. I was thinking 3 also. Just too much sugar, and
Very
I
sweet.
ate all mine though, and the mess factor is a little high for
They're
me.
pretty messy.
I'm going to go 3.5 because I have a sweet tooth and this is fixing it right now. And then I know that because we've talked off air, so to speak, but that you had to do the hot tamales versus the red hots
Right,
because of
couldn't
what the
find the
store
Red Hots.
offered. I actually like the hot tamales because they're not hard like the red hot.
Oh, they are a little
And-
more.
Yeah, and so like they're just more even across the board with this, and it allows the cornflake to be the crunchy part.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm a solid 3.5.
Nice.
I'm gonna match you on that, Jay. Yeah, it's delicious. Super messy though. It's a good thing I'm off camera.
They are messy.
But yeah, delicious.
It's the idea is Rice Krispie treats, only instead of Rice Krispies cornflakes that's really the only that's what it is. And,
It's a lot of sugar first thing in the morning though.
right.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Maybe not a breakfast dessert,
It's cornflakes.
but it
Yeah,
is cornflakes.
cornflakes.
Well, and so you got some vitamins in there. All right.
There we go.
Excellent. And now to wrap up our episode today, we will have our God moment. Pastor Tim, would you like to share your God moment with us?
My God moment actually happened a little while ago. My son and daughter-in-law came to our house on a short notice and gave us a card to read. And it was a card announcing that we were going to be grandparents for the first time. And it's very different than knowing I was going to be a father. a lot less stress, a lot more joy. Sorry, kids. I mean, it's
Sure.
but yeah, it really affected me in a real positive way. That I can't wait. I can't wait to change a dirty diaper. I just can't wait.
Yeah, joy will do weird things.
For sure.
That's cool.
Well, thank you for journeying to the well with us today. May God's peace go with you.
The Well is a podcast of St. Luke's ELCA in Middleton, Wisconsin. You can follow for new episodes airing every other Thursday on St. Luke's website, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to drop a question in The Well, you can dive over to stlukes-elca.org/thewell and submit your questions there. The Well is sponsored by the St. Luke's Foundation. The foundation is dedicated to leaving a legacy for future generations. You can learn more by heading to stlukes-elca.org/foundation. The Well is edited by Jimmy Patton and produced by Doug Castle. Thanks for listening, and we'll meet you next time here at The Well.